Hey, welcome to the April 7th, 2014 Town Council meeting. I think we have an announcement and a proclamation. Mike, can you help me out with the announcement?
Work Zone Awareness Week in conjunction with the state, April 7th through the 11th, 2014, has been identified as a Work Zone Awareness Week in Indiana. Work Zone Awareness Week marks the ceremonial start of the highway construction season and is intended to bring awareness to motorists and workers' safety in work zones. Fishers is dedicated to continuously improving work zone safety, needs participation from everybody, especially motorists, to make the highway work zones as safe as possible. Fishers will invest in highway infrastructure projects this year to enhance the safety, mobility, and economic growth in Indiana. Highway work zones must balance maintaining access for motorists, residents and businesses and emergency services, while also giving the workers a safe environment to do their work. Motorists are urged to always comply with speed limits in construction zones and improve safety for both the highway workers and the motoring public. Highway work zones leave no room for distraction and require attentive, cautious driving habits. Dedicate your full attention to the roadway and avoid all distractions, including cell phones, especially while driving through the work zone. Remember that the work zone crew are working to improve the road and make your future drive better.
Thank you, Mike. I think we've got a couple presentations tonight, Scott.
Yeah, before we get going on that, I just want to give everyone a quick update on where we're at with some of the road repairs that we're going to be working on. The quotes were signed. If you recall, at the last council meeting, you gave the town manager authorization to sign 3 independent quotes to get going on pothole repairs and road repairs. Those were signed. Reith Riley will be out to work, I think, starting next week. We also have 2 crews from the Public Works Department that have been out recently patching as much as they can. So we have a pretty robust effort underway to get these roads in better shape. We do know that there's some pretty bad situations out there, and Eric and his crew in the engineering department will be on top of that here shortly.
Hey, Scott, kind of along those lines, I'd ask around the last budget time, remember the just a full assessment of the roads, and it just kind of triggers me that can we continue to work, or at least give us an update, and I'm doing this to help everybody, because I think what we're going to find out from the staff's perspective is if we have X to repair our roads, we have so many roads that came in at about the same time that over the next whatever number of years, we're going to need to increase that.
Yeah, I think Eric will be your best friend in that conversation. He certainly has carried that torch for a number of years that we need to be looking at that, and we've got some folks doing some pavement assessments, and I hopefully will have that information to you shortly.
Okay. Is that paths too?
What's that?
Some of the paths as well?
Yes, absolutely. We do have some paths reaching that age too.
Okay.
Mike?
I'd just like to add, too, that I appreciate staff's efforts in looking into the private roads situation and staying on some of the larger developments.
Yeah, we have some pretty serious issues on some private roads right now as
and
well.
they're doing a good job of sitting down with them at the table, having meetings, and holding them to a standard.
Yep, we'll stay on that as well. Tonight we have a couple different presentations. I would ask that Rachel Johnson from our Community Development Department come forward and talk a little bit about the Fishers Community Arts Master Plan.
Thanks, Scott. Good evening, members of the council. Again, for the record, Rachel Johnson with Community Development Department. Our Fishers Community Art Master Plan was recently selected by the Indiana chapter of the American Planning Association for the Outstanding Plan of the Year. This is given to one plan each year, and we're very appreciative of the opportunity to have been able to enter that competition and to have been selected. The award honors excellence in planning and plans that have advanced the practice of planning. I'd like to also thank the hard work of my staff, particularly Sue Harrison and Brandon Bart, who headed up this project. They worked tirelessly to get this plan through the process and worked well with the various stakeholders to make sure all their input was represented and well consolidated into the actual planning document, and that the plan itself properly reflected the input that was received throughout the process. which is not always an easy feat, as you know. This achievement also could not have been reached without the feedback and the collaboration of the Fishers Arts Council, as well as the Fishers Cultural Tourism Group. Both were instrumental in the creation of the plan and really made for a plan that was credible to our community. They both these groups made significant contributions of their time and talent, which we're greatly appreciative of. Of course, we'd also like to thank the Plan Commission for their valuable feedback during the planning process and the role that they played in the development of the plan. Lastly, on behalf of the Community Development Department, I'd like to thank the Town Council for your support of the project, the important role you have taken in supporting the plan, as well as arts in our community as part of a vibrant and thriving community. So with that, I'd like to present you all with the plaque we received from the Indiana APA for Outstanding Plan of the Year. Thank you.
I guess that's me this time, huh? John normally gets all the glory.
And I think a good part of that, people have seen that, but in the Pocket Park, one component of that is the mural, which I think is just a neat piece. It's a local artist that, when everybody met her that day, it was just a great experience. And hopefully over time, we can add a few more of those, and just as a fraction of the cost of what Carmel pays for one of those statues, we can have 10 or 12 of these things throughout the community, and it'll be people that are in the community that made it. So I think that's kind of the first step as people drive by.
Absolutely.
I just want to add, too, that one of the things we have been able to do is successfully integrate someone from the arts community into the Plan Commission. And we have a member who sits on the Plan Commission and looks at the plans as they come through and thinks about what kind of public art or what kind of open space should look like and contribute. And we're going to be working more towards getting involved in some of the PUD committees.
One thing I would just like to add as well, this is a result, in my opinion, of what happens when engaged artists in our community come together and are focused on getting something done that's meaningful to the community. So kudos to all the residents that bring that expertise and that passion to the table, because the community benefits for that. So.
Next agenda item, I'd ask Captain John Mailing from our Fire and Emergency Services Department to come forward to give you guys an update on some pretty extraordinary numbers and performance out of our Fire and Emergency Services Department. So, John?
Thanks, Scott. John Mailing from the Fire Department, External Affairs Officer. The numbers I've got tonight are pretty astounding. It's from our first quarter for our cardiac arrests. We have a 65% return on our cardiac arrests this past quarter, which is a crazy amount of saves for cardiac arrest. It's way beyond anything in the national average, roughly 6.5 times the national average. Some of the things that have created this is our new initiative is Protecting the Heart of Fishers. And a variety of things go into this program. You've probably seen some of the publications with our Friends and Family CPR that we've been doing in various locations. We've got another one of those coming up, I think, with one of our communities. But it's a package deal that is a chain of survival. And it incurs the witnessed arrest, the fact that CPR is initiated right away by someone that knows how to perform CPR, which is why we're so adamant about doing the CPR classes. One of the reasons we've done over 500 instructional with people in the community. The use of the external defibrillators, we've been working very closely with our schools, our churches, our businesses, trying to get them to get the AEDs in a position to where they're easily accessible. Unfortunately, we've been seeing more and more of that occur even in our schools. And fortunately, the AEDs have been there, and that's a part of what has saved those lives. But the technology and the experience of the medical personnel, the proximity to the heart hospitals, all of this is tying into a 65% save rate for our first quarter. And we don't think it's an anomaly. We think this is a number you're going to continue to see. So it was just such a great number, we wanted to share it tonight with you. So thank you.
That's truly outstanding. 6.5 times national average. That's a great job to Steve and crew and everybody else out there, and keep up the great work. We have a proclamation for the Fishers High School We the People team. If Stuart, if I could get you to read that for me, that'd be great.
Town of Fishers Town Council Proclamation. Whereas the Town of Fishers is committed to support local schools, and whereas Fishers High School won the Indiana Bars Foundation's We the People State Finals, a state civic educational competition, and whereas interest and participation in such educational programs engage and teach young adults how to be good citizens, and whereas it fosters an understanding of the institutions of American democracy, including the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and whereas the civic educational competition is one of the most effective for the creation of model citizens who vote at a higher rate than their peers. Whereas Fishers High School's We the People team will represent the state of Indiana in the national competition here in April. Therefore, we, the Fishers Town Council, do hereby proclaim April 7, 2014 to be Fishers High School We the People Team Day.
Thank you, Stuart. And I don't know if any of those participants are here tonight or anybody from Fishers is here. Very good luck in April, and I know you'll do us all proud. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. If I can have a motion for the consent agenda.
I would move to approve the consent agenda consisting of item A, which is request to approve previous meeting memorandum for March 17, 2014, executive session March 17, 2014, work and regular session. I will be abstaining from that consent agenda item. Item B, request to approve purchases of vehicles and equipment for the Department of Public Works. Item C, request to approve interlocal agreement with the City of Indianapolis for improvements to the intersection of 96th Street and Lantern Road. Item D, request to approve annual purchase order for Verizon Cellular Service. Item E, R04014, request to approve resolution declaring town property as surplus. Item F, R040714A, request to approve resolution transferring town funds. Item G, request to approve contract change order. And item H, request to approve amended impact fee agreement with M&I Homes for the Ambria Park.
Second the motion with personally abstaining from 5A.
Any items need to be polled? I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Moving on to item 6.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Adam Zach Lakowski, a planner with the Community Development Department. This item and the next two items are related to the Cynthiana Park South annexation and rezone. So for purposes of moving the meeting along, we'll just do one presentation. Again, for the folks who haven't seen this, this will be the third reading for the annexation. There is a resolution authorizing the fiscal plan, which was done in accordance with state law. And then it'll be a combined second and third reading for the rezone. But Cynthiana Park would be located in the far southeast corner of the community, near 101st Street in Cynthiana. As you can see here, the property is contiguous to existing town limits, which of course is very important and required by state law. It's a 60-acre property. As part of the rezone, it would be zoned from R2 residential to OS open space. The reason for that is so that this way the zoning will closely align with the intended use of the property. And of course, the park is slated to open in the fall of this year. It'll include a number of amenities. Most prominently, there will be a sledding hill. It'll also feature a progressive bike trail, which is for non-motorized bikes. There will be some tree houses and a boardwalk trail as well. This here is just a concept plan showing the layout of the park. As you can see, the circular pattern that you see there is the boardwalk trail. And in the northern portion of the property along 101st Street is the sledding hill. So with that, if you have any questions or comments, I'd be more than happy to answer them, and Tony Elliott from the Parks Department is here as well. Thank you.
One quick point of clarification, it is our hope that the sledding hill will be open by winter, but the park itself is looking more like a spring opening of 15 and not in 14.
And I hope we don't have snow for another 5 winters, so.
Yeah, right, there you go.
Is that a motion?
It'll work.
From a procedural perspective, are we going items 6, 7, and 8? What other items?
And I need to get clarification on that because we're dealing with annexation stuff. And I know I'm looking at number 8 has a second in there, so it would be open public hearing, I would suppose. So I don't know that that one can be combined. So should we just deal with them each separately? This is pretty straightforward stuff. We talked about this, so probably be easy just to deal with them separately and move forward.
You're correct, just make sure
Okay.
it's clear on the record.
Is there any requirement for a public hearing with regard to the fiscal plan, item 6? Okay, all right. And I'll entertain a motion on item 6, unless there's further questions.
I'm sorry, I will move to approve Resolution 040714B.
Do I have a second? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item passes. Now we'll go to 7.
I move to approve Ordinance 021714A.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 8.
I move to suspend the rules to approve this resolution, or Ordinance 021714B on third reading after public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Let's go ahead and open it for public hearing if there is any public comment on this item.
Pete, one point of clarification, we need to get a vote on suspending the rules, and then you will vote again on actually approving.
Just thought I'd open it for public hearing,
Yeah.
since we'll take care of that, and then I'll vote on that one first. So seeing no one coming to podium, I'll go ahead and close public hearing. There is a motion to suspend the rules. Can I have all in favor?
Aye.
There's a motion, you need a second, don't you? Was there a second? Okay,
It was Mike and then David, wasn't it?
sorry.
I didn't, but I will.
Okay, sorry, there's a second there.
Fine.
And opposed? Okay. Now we'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
So I would move to approve Ordinance 021714B.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we're on to item 9.
I would just comment procedurally, we've allowed for, if there's a motion on second reading like that, if it gets a second and a unanimous vote, it's tacit that the consent was granted historically. If someone wants to object, then we can, sometimes people will want to vote no, but don't want to slow down the vote.
Yeah, we've been advised by legal that they would prefer that we would have a separate vote.
Okay, so we're on to item 9.
All right, the next item before you is the first reading for Rita's Backyard Garden Center rezone. This particular rezoning would be located on 116th Street, just west of Brooks School Road, and as you can see, it's basically in the center of Fishers. The property is an existing property. It's surrounded by residential uses. To the north are 2 subdivisions. To the south is a subdivision, and directly to the west is, actually, that's been rezoned to PUD-C. That's the future Simply Dental property, if you'll recall, that came before council a few months ago. More specifically on this particular property, there are a number of existing uses on site. They include things such as greenhouses. There's a barn with a tea room. There's a garage on the property. There's also an art studio and a photo studio currently today. So this particular property, it's about 2 acres. It's owned by Rita Beck. She is requesting the rezone from R2 residential, which is the current designation, to C2 commercial with certain restrictions. Again, I already outlined the various uses on the property, all very low impact uses. The predominant use of the property today is the garden center. Basically, the main reason for the rezoning is that the R2 zoning doesn't match the current uses. The garden center was allowed back in 1998 when this area was under the jurisdiction of the city of Noblesville, and that was granted through a variance request. Since that time, Mrs. Beck has expanded some of the commercial uses, such as the tea room, the photo studio, and the art studio, and those weren't specifically authorized by the variance. So the rezoning would allow her to continue operating those uses. In terms of the applicable development standards for this property, you'll see in the ordinance, it follows the use-specific standards of the UDO, and the reason for that is being sensitive to the residential uses that surround the property. A lot of those development standards are geared towards these types of situations in which you have commercial in very close proximity to homes. So for example, it's more restrictive on lighting, architectural standards, things of that nature. More specifically, if you'll see in the ordinance, it outlines the permitted uses. Obviously, we have to be mindful of not only what's allowed today, but what could be allowed in the future. So as part of this action, we've allowed greenhouses, the garden plant and tree sales, photography shop, etc. Most importantly, we've prohibited a number of uses that would ordinarily be allowed in C2 but would not be compatible with those houses that are nearby. And most importantly, those would be things like gas stations, convenience stores, dry cleaners, and very large restaurants. So again, this is first reading. The item would appear at the Plan Commission on April 15th. If you have any questions or comments, I'd be more than happy to answer them, and Mrs. Beck is here as well. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, this is first reading, so I know this will go through the process, the Plan Commission, and come back to us for second. One of the permitted uses is coffee and tea shop. I would assume that could be a Starbucks, for example. So I would like to see the issue discussed about the any kind of a drive-through. I've got an aerial of that particular land, and it's quite close to some residential. So I think the way our ordinances are reading today, a drive-through would not be permitted. Also, I'd like to see a little more tighter definition or a little more examples of low-impact uses. What exactly does that mean, and what are we talking about here? Drill that down a little bit. That's just my comment.
Any other further comments?
Yeah, a couple things, Adam. When you go to Plan Commission, then when you bring it back, and I remember that we just did the property to the west. If you could kind of remind us on maybe what the setbacks were there versus what they would be here, because I just have the same. I just want to look at what it would be to the homeowners nearby. So that'd be one thing, and then also, and if you have it in here, I apologize, but the way that you ordered the list is what would be permitted. If you could give us a full list so that we could see what would be permitted versus prohibited, that would just help as well.
I was able to get an aerial view of the property today off of Google, so it might be a good idea to put that in as an attachment.
Okay. Any other questions?
First reading.
Okay, we have first reading. Moving on to item 10.
Good evening, Council. For the record, my name is Tom Dickey. I'm the Director of the Community Development Department. I'm here to present this council action form in this request to seek approval to purchase property at 11608 JC Street. This is actually request that you've seen before. We've talked about it in both executive session and work session. This is a little bit of a just procedural step that we need to take tonight. This purchase has been approved by the Redevelopment Commission by resolution back in October. You'll recall this is the parcel that is just north of the Pocket Park, where Mr. and Mrs. McDermott have lived for many, many years. Last year, we reached an agreement with the McDermotts that gave the town an option to purchase their property at a designated price for a period of 4 years, and also gave them the option, if they had found a retirement option for them to move to call us up and say, hey, it's time for you to purchase my property. That essentially is an option to purchase, obviously, which has not been the structure of our other purchases. Those have just been sign the contract and we'll go to closing and purchase. And legal has advised us that we need to put a non-refundable payment down to secure that option so that it becomes a binding contract. So that requires a non-refundable payment today, or when we sign the contract, of $1,000. And so this request before the claim comes before you needs to be approved by you tonight. So this request is to actually approve the contract, approve of the payment of the $1,000, and then you'll see probably on the next agenda or at the end of your agenda in the claims docket a claim for that $1,000 option payment.
And this all been briefed with McDermott?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're very much, they're in lockstep and they know what we're doing.
Any further comments?
Tom?
Motion to approve. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, real quick, Tom, that $1,000 on that goes hard immediately, and then that
does.
is for the option period?
Yes.
Okay.
For 4 years.
Consideration is basically what it is.
It's consideration for the option,
Offer
right.
acceptance
That's what I'm-
consideration. It's
Okay.
And it does not apply to the
not like
purchase price.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's very reasonably nominal.
Nominal.
For
Yeah.
the period of time.
Oh, absolutely.
you Have that right.
And for
Yeah.
the total cost of the
Because they also have benefit in the fact that if they do find a retirement option, they can call us up and require to buy it. So it's in recognition that we really both have benefit there.
Okay, I'll let you entertain your motion.
Motion to approve resolution R040714C.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by David. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our regular items. Item 11.
For the record, Scott Fadness, Town Manager. The item before you tonight is a contract for a study that will be conducted on the Geist Reservoir regarding the overall condition of the reservoir and what it would take to improve the conditions of the water quality. A little background on this: the Geist Improvement Fund Board, which was put in place per the Geist annexation agreement, impounded 3 years of property taxes, approximately 50% over the 3-year period. The summation of that is somewhere between $3.5 to $3.7 million. The group has entertained several different projects from the Geist residents to find out what could be done in this area that could improve the quality of life for the residents of this particular population in the Geist area. Tonight you'll also see consideration of a contract to do landscaping and some monument work in 2 roundabouts in the Geist area. So they have a number of projects they're looking at. One of them that they have considered from a number of different residents is to take a look at the Geist Reservoir and try to understand better what are some of the issues with vegetation, sediment, and all of those types of things, general water quality. Tonight, what you have before you is a contract with Cardno JF New in partnership with Kripe Engineering, which was, these individuals were selected from a formal request for proposal process that the Geist Impound Fund went through over the course of about 2 months. They interviewed several different candidates and they chose Cardno JF New to conduct this study. It's approximately about a 6-month study, and at the end of the day the deliverable will basically be a report that tells us what's going on with the lake, what's the current condition of the lake, a whole host of different capital projects that could be done, the costs associated with those projects, as well as the benefits that could be contemplated from doing those projects. So tonight I'm bringing this forward really on behalf of the Geist Improvement Fund Board as their recommendation to spend $110,000 of the money that is allotted to them.
And Scott, just for information purposes only, this is a study only. It's not committing the town to spending any further money, and regardless of what that study says, there's no future buy-in to saying whatever this study says, the town's going to go ahead and back and do.
Yeah, that's an excellent point and a good clarification. By no means does this mean that the town of Fishers is going to go out and spend significant tax dollars improving the lake. What this group has asked to do is use some of the money allotted to the Geist Improvement Fund Board to really understand better what is going on in the lake. And that may mean that they take this information and go pursue federal grants or state grants, or just have better education when they're working with the Geist Lake Coalition on fundraising efforts for the lake. Could mean a variety of things, but really to date, we don't have a great study to tell us, here's the situation in the lake and here's what needs to be done in order to improve it.
I guess that's kind of a question I had was, okay, we we do this study. I mean, are we the only municipality or jurisdiction that has responsibility for the quality of that reservoir? I mean, do we own the, not to muddy the waters, so to speak, but do we own the mud, not the water? I mean,
So it does get complicated, and this is one of those jurisdictional black holes, if you will, because technically the lake itself is owned by Citizens Energy. We don't own the lake, the city of Indianapolis doesn't own the lake, yet we have property around there. So we all have a vested interest in seeing the lake succeed. DNR has a say in it, IDEM has a say in it, the Army Corps of Engineers has a say in it, our stormwater ordinances have a say in it. So I wouldn't say that anyone is solely responsible for the ownership of this. This isn't an attempt really because we have so many Fishers residents that live around the Geist area that have a vested interest in seeing that water quality improve. This is their attempt to understand better what it is that needs to be done to it.
and I appreciate that. And I know from a town perspective, we do the blast
Right.
on the bridge and so forth, so I know there's a town interest. I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
we knocked on the doors of some of the other folks that might be affected by this.
Absolutely. We have ongoing conversations with the governmental affairs people from Citizens, which will be a component of this as we work through this study, understanding what Citizens already intends to do to the lake so that we're not duplicating efforts, as well as talking to the city of Indianapolis to get their involvement. So I think this could really be a catalyst for all of us to start working together to make sure that that common asset is as good as it can be.
And something else, our neighbors to the north, are we in conversation with them? Because what goes through our area comes from up north, I would think. Are we involving them in the conversation?
Yes, the watershed is something that we've been in conversations with for some time because we already regulate that within our own town, as well as there's a watershed management group that gets together. Jason Armour, our stormwater engineer, he's involved in that conversation. So absolutely there's a recognition that if we don't fix upstream, it's a little difficult to fix downstream. But this study will primarily focus on the lake because there's already a storm watershed or watershed plan that's already been conducted. So we already know the issues that are in the watershed. What we don't know is what are the issues in the lake. So what's the sediment, what's the nutrient load, all those types of things that are already pre-existing in the lake that we have to deal with.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Yep.
And we've got the impoundment group, which is kind of overseeing the purchase of this contract, so it's the wrong word, but.
Right.
And then there's also the watershed group. Are they
Yeah,
merged at all
so
and looking at this?
the impoundment fund group is the one basically saying this is our budget and here's how we're going to allot money. We have Rick Farnham and Jason Armour from our staff will be the point people on this particular project. Jason obviously being acutely aware of the stormwater issues that are out there. We're in constant conversation with the Geist Lake Coalition, which is a very active group in regard to this. So I think we'll have good communication all the way around with the stakeholders.
Okay, and I think I mentioned this before, just my role in the oversight. There's an oversight board with Citizens, of which many communities have a representative. I am the Fishers representative to that. And we have, over the years, put together a lot of studies, both quantity and quality and demand. So in the very beginning of this, maybe we could all get together, a small group, and just kind of talk through, these are the studies that we have. So that we don't duplicate
I
efforts,
appreciate
and then
that.
anything that you need from Citizens, I can kind of help.
No, we really do appreciate that. In fact, in the scope of the work that we outlined here, part of the conversation with Cardno JFNU was that we were not interested in them going out and collecting a bunch of raw data, but rather taking what's already been done and leveraging that. So any help that you could provide to us for that kind of information would be helpful.
That we've enlisted Senator Merritt's help as well, who's on the Utility Commission for the Senate. So, and I think they've done a good job. I mean, this has been thoroughly vetted through the process, and staff has done a terrific job on it. It's a highly critical asset that we need to get our arms around, just due to the fact the amount of a net assessed value, which is in and around that lake, needs to be protected and maintained. So, well, I'll go ahead, and unless there's any other further questions from Scott, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, passes. Thanks, Scott. Moving on to item 12.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Why is it? There. There we go. Good evening. For the record, Sue Harrison, Community Development Department. I'm very pleased to be here this evening to present you with the Gateway and Wayfinding Master Plan. The plan is a culmination of about a year of work on branding initiatives in the town. It combines two branding elements, the Gateway and Wayfinding, into one strategic document for implementation over time. So the plan itself does three things. It basically presents the cohesive designs that have been developed for the gateways and the wayfinding. It identifies locations, very specific locations for these elements, and it provides guidance on implementation. As we all know, first impressions are very important, and our investment in these branding elements will foster civic pride, create very distinct identity for the town, and will celebrate Fishers heritage. So we have two key kinds of gateways. One are key entryways into the town, and the other celebrate individual districts. And as we've heard from Scott earlier, we worked with the Geist Improvement Board on two specific gateways. We're very excited. They're coming on board this summer. They integrate elements of the base design for a key entryway gateway, but they also incorporate art sculptures, which are reflective of the unique personality of that district. And it's our thought as new districts are created in town, for example, the Nickel Plate District, that further gateways of this style would be implemented. Then wayfinding. Wayfinding is the second branding element that's included in this plan. Wayfinding, what does it do? It makes it easy to get around town for visitors, for our own residents. It provides consistent visual elements, so our signs all look very professional, and it's aimed at vehicular and pedestrian wayfinding. So again, we are defining and celebrating Fishers. We learned a lot about signage in this exercise, and there's quite an art to signage. We have welcome signs. This is our whole sign family. We have welcome signs. We have primary and secondary wayfinding. We also have parking signs, and the second one from the right is the pedestrian signage. So it will, once you get out of your car, it's at a pedestrian scale, and there'll be a map inserted in that big blank piece there. And our final and member of this family was just designed this month, and it's a share the road sign. So we are working on the bike ped plan, and we're hearing that a lot of the work that we have to do to implement that plan when we get that approved will be awareness and education. So May is National Bike Month. And so we're going to roll these signs out in May, so they'll be coming to a street near you. And we are hoping that that will be just the tip of the iceberg of our education. So tonight we are here asking you to recommend approval. We would like to have you adopt the resolution and endorse the Fishers Gateway and Wayfinding Plan.
Thank you, Sue. Any questions for Sue?
Yes, Sue, thank you. Great presentation and, great visual. One of the things with the ones of the share the road and others that are meant to be wayfinding for people in vehicles as they travel by, at different rates of speed given the speed limit of the road in which those signs would be abutting. has there been, because there's a lot of, as you said, there's a lot of science and aspects of human perception built into these signs and the way they're designed. So just want to make sure that, that the concept of travel speed and the perception time and size of the sign
Right.
have been taken into consideration, because we've in the past we've had some signs years and years ago, many years ago, which that weren't as legible at the speed in which vehicles would travel at the speed limit.
Yes, those are very good comments. We worked with RLR. They did the original sign family. And when we went to add this sign, at the first meeting, somebody drew a picture and handed it and said, I like this. And we said, no, we're going to go to RLR. And because of all those things, it really does matter how much information you can put on the sign, how big the letters are, and in relationship to the speed on the road.
Okay,
So,
great.
so we've done that homework.
Excellent. Thank you. I just by way of making sure people understood that some of that background has been done.
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Stuart jogs my memory also of an evening. Are the letterings in such a way that you can be driving down the street and, see that, and whether they're near a light?
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
all of those signs are reflective, so like when how your car lights hit a stop
Right.
sign or whatever, it doesn't light up, but you can see it in the
Yeah.
evening hours. So yes.
Okay, great.
And I think the design that you've got in here, Sue, is great. I think I had seen maybe over the last number of months some of the other design. I think this one just will stand the test of time. There's some others that maybe had a little bit more plexiglass. I think that this is a great look, and just brick and all that will stand the test of time.
Good.
But then on a couple of these, you've got the no parking sign, and maybe these are just in a couple generic areas. But even if we want to upgrade that, because it looks like just kind of the standard gauge post, if we want to upgrade just the post that the sign would be on, and some of those, that'd
Okay.
at least be fine with me.
Okay.
And then on some of these, you've got 116th and Aliceville. I know that that's just what you're showing here, but is the intent on some of these, when we get to a certain area, that we're going to upgrade that with the wayfinding? Would we replace some of the older signage that would be, maybe say you go down Hague Road and you've got some of those signs that go into different areas, would we replace those so that over time the whole area in different chunks would be upgraded
Very good
too?
points. Yes, it'll all be phased in,
Okay.
and, as priority and budget allow.
Sure.
But I always like to say these plans are living, breathing documents and can be amended. So as things change or development occurs, we can come back and revisit this document. In fact, we should, on a fairly regular basis.
Good.
Mike, any? Then, Sue, I certainly appreciate and applaud all your efforts. I sat through a number of those Geist Improvement Board meetings, and I know you can't wait to get back to doing another year full of that with those folks up there to come to resolution on these signs. So I'll go ahead and entertain a motion on item 12.
Make a motion to adopt resolution R040714D.
We have a second?
Second.
Second by David. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on to item 13.
For the record, Tammy Otto, Assistant Engineer, Department of Engineering. As part of the Gateway Master Plan that Sue just presented, town staff and the Geist Impoundment Board have worked with REA to complete the first of the 3 gateways. There's 3 different locations that the town staff and the Geist Board have nominated as the first gateways to go. We have 96 and Allisonville. This is showing the layout of the gateway. It'll be on the northeast corner of 96 and Allisonville, currently where the Shell station is located. I'm sorry?
Can you orient me to the view? The one on the left is obviously heading north, is that right?
This
Heading-
you'll see when you're facing east. That's a little, whenever you head north, you'll see this part, this should be over here. You'll see the Fisher sign. this is a little better one. Okay, so if you're heading north on Allisonville, you'll see the Fishers here. If you're heading east on 96th Street,
Okay.
you'll see the column.
Thank you.
And the town staff and Geist Impoundment Board worked in collaboration to put these two gateways together. One is at Brooks School in Fall Creek, the other is 96th in Fall Creek.
One quick point of clarification, I think. The 96th and Allisonville Road gateway is actually paid from the bond or the ban that we did for that project. It's not related to the two that the Geist Improvement Fund Board looked at. These two are the ones that would be paid out of that fund. And they light up too, so that's pretty cool.
So there is lighting. This is, as you can see, the base is brick and some metal paneling and some resin materials, and then the sailboats are in the center to depict the Geist area. Bids were opened on March 14th, and Myers Construction Management was determined as the lowest, most responsive bidder. We, town staff, then presented the bids to the Geist Impoundment Board for their two gateways, the Fall Creek and Brooks School and 96 and Fall Creek. The Geist Impoundment Board has authorized the expenditure for their two gateways, which would come up to about $880,000. And so what we are asking tonight is that you authorize the expenditure from the Geist Impoundment Fund for these two gateways and to award the construction contract to Myers Construction Management.
Thank you, Tammy. Any questions for?
I've got a question, Pete. Does this include maintenance? I don't know if we've talked about maintenance. We can build it, but are we going to maintain it? And if so, who's going to pay for that?
Well,
I'm not sure if the
town would be responsible for the long-term maintenance because it is a public asset. We did have several conversations with the engineers or the designers of this to understand what the maintenance implications would be. They seem fairly minimal. The color panels can easily be replaced if there's a light out. You can clean them very easily. So, and the rest is just brick and mortar, which wouldn't require a great deal of maintenance. But those were conversations that we had when deciding upon a design.
Did they give you a ballpark? I mean,
no, they didn't give us a ballpark in terms of annual maintenance, I don't believe. But I would think it'd be pretty nominal unless, somebody ran into it or we had some
Sure.
major incident. But otherwise, it's literally changing light bulbs for the most part.
I want to bring up an issue after we vote on this, so I don't want to confuse my issue. But
And I've sat through a number of these meetings, and so has Scott and a number of the other staff. And one of the things that always came to bear, Renee, quite frankly, was resiliency, right? One of the things that we talked about in our gateway signage, and I know we kind of struggle that back and forth a little bit because we start to look like every other community, but you get back to the materials that are going to last the test of time, right? And you end up back with the same materials, right? So what they tried to do is they tried to incorporate something new and different for that area while still trying to maintain the resiliency of that product. And there was a lot of discussion ad nauseum about that, and I didn't go to every meeting, so I can't even imagine what some of the other discussion was. So, but that was a very key point to the products they ended up with there.
But the one at 96 and Allisonville Road, that's essentially kind of a standard that will be used in multiple different areas?
Yeah, I
Obviously,
think
the other one-
I think that being said, there could be some takes on it, if you will, or like if you're in the Saxony area, there might be some components that make it uniquely Saxony. So they'll be respectful of the district that they might be near, but for the most part, those materials you will see again replicated in the other gateway
I think,
areas.
David, if you look at the bottom one, right, if you look at what the whole idea there was on the design, so as you're coming at that from the direction we see it there, you're coming down Fall Creek approaching 96. So you're in Indianapolis crossing over into Fishers there. So that's why you've got that incorporated portion of the sign that looks more like the one that Tammy showed previously. It's at 96 in Allisonville. Okay, as you start coming in from the 96th Street way, right, that's where it starts to change because you start to get the elements of water, movement, sails that are saying you're now entering a different district. And then obviously the one in at the roundabout area at Brook School and Fall Creek is uniquely Geist.
Well, and that's not, we don't really
Right.
view that one as a gateway.
It's not. It's
That
a
was more their
district
just
site.
choice to do it, yeah.
But they did that element that you were talking about, trying to maintain the elemency that goes on.
I just kind of bring it up just because, I'm just thinking about into the future because this, what I call the standard, don't take that word,
Sure.
you know, the standard one, you can build 2 to 2.5 of those for this. So if it gets ramped up in other areas, that's what I'm just trying to think in my own mind.
Clearly, I think the Geist Improvement Fund
Based on
Board
bids.
made a strategic decision to spend some of their resources here and make this a real identifiable marquee for their district. Our signage for a gateway would not necessarily put that kind of investment in this. This was a strategic decision on their part.
Sorry, Mike. The only other question was on going east, like Tammy said, there's an emblem on the top of the column. And I don't want to change anything, it's just in the future. Does it make sense some of the other directions? Because if you're going north, you'll see the Fishers, but you wouldn't see the emblem, but you would if you had it on that side. To have the emblem on multiple sides of that?
I was going to say, we did look at that, and the angle of the intersection, since it's a little more skewed, you'd still be able to see it coming up at Allisonville from the north. You'd still be able to see that emblem.
Mike?
Yeah, I was going to bring up something later on, but David's kind of introduced the topic into, and I guess I would say 146 in Allisonville. There's a pretty large place going in down there, and I recall during the discussion on that particular project, there was some questions about their participation and coordination with us on any signage that they did and ours, gateway. So if that discussion isn't happening, I'd like to see
Yeah,
that.
we'll come back to you guys with that. I think we're still looking into whether or not there are some commitments in the PUD or anything like
Yeah.
that that would have any kind of gateway signage on that parcel.
There's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve
13?
the request award contract as submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, passes. Thanks, Tammy.
I guess I had just one comment on that, because I think we did have a mix here of gateway and then
District.
neighborhood district.
Correct.
And I guess I'm, the nickel plate, and we have other districts that we look to highlight, so I'm still very flexible in seeing unique character of signage that relates to the district to help build that kind of sense of micro place within
Sure.
the overall community.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'd like to just say maybe we could sit down with Connor Prairie and take a look at
Yeah, absolutely.
some roads down there and, maybe why are we calling it Allisonville? Why isn't it,
Connorville?
William Connor Parkway or something like that?
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
that's a big leap, but at least open that door.
Great.
Thanks, Mike. I will move on to item 14.
I have to tell you, Jeff Hill went on spring break and put my name on this council action form. So between myself and Tom Dickey, we're gonna try to put the information
So
together
we'll
for you.
shame Jeff the next time he comes to council meeting. We'll do. Okay. Make note of that.
Good evening again. Tom Dickey with the Community Development Department. Tammy Otto also has not strayed far. She's also she's directly responsible for the implementation of this project, so I'm sure she can help answer any questions you may have. I put up on the overhead a depiction, an aerial of which shows the project that you're being asked to approve the construction contracts for tonight. This is a project that I think I and others have been before you to talk about many times now. This is the improvement of Maple Street from 116th Street to what would be a new road, the extension of Fisher's Corner Boulevard, and then the actual construction of a new east-west road, Fisher's Corner Boulevard. So those two streets are here. This aerial also shows improvements to Lantern, which are not part of this contract, adding parking and some improvements, and that's a project that is just in the planning phases and would not be anything that would be certainly contracted for now, and it's actually planned for at least 2015, so that's it just happened to be on this same drawing. Just a quick update before I hit you with information on the construction contracts. We have closed on all 4 properties across there, so we own those. The owners are in various stages of turning over properties to us. The property owned by Fritz has been turned over to us. Mr. Ertl's insurance business on Maple has been turned over to us. The Johnsons are in the process of moving their business up near Mudsock Fields, and Mr. Wolf is in the process of moving out of his business into a new location in Fishers as we speak. So we should have possession of all those properties by May 1. That's being coordinated by Tammy for the start of this construction project. So you have 2 council action forms before you tonight, so 2 specific requests. Let me try to explain the reason you have 2 of those. The first would be to award the contract to the lowest bidder, and then the second would be to immediately then approve a change order to the contract. And the reason for that was we bid, really as a team with Tammy's input and Jeff's and A&F's, we bid other portions of the project to see if we could we thought would really be competitive pricing. For example, the bid for this project went ahead and included the improvements at the intersection or the railroad tracks on Lantern Road. And so we got a price on that, and we didn't think it was competitive. We thought we can get at least that good of a price, so we're pushing that off to be done with the Lantern Road improvement. That's an example. And I'll go over a better list for you.
North, you mean?
Yeah, up north at Lantern and the railroad tracks, that planned improvement there. So I'll go over the detail of what is coming out in the change order. So essentially, the first council action form would be to approve the award of the contract at the full amount, which is roughly $4.1 million. I'll tell you the exact amount in a minute. And then approve a change order reducing that to roughly $3.6 million, which brings it in just a little bit under the budget for the project. So with that summary, I'll get into the details. So the bids for this project were open on March 27th, been reviewed thoroughly by Tammy and Engineering, by A&F, and by Legal. The lowest responsible and responsive bidder was Reith Riley at $4,189,600 for the construction of those 2 roads, water and sewer along the roads, and stormwater underneath the roads. So that's what's included in the scope of the project. The details of bid tabulations are attached. They're broken out by category of what's water there, what's sewer, what's road, and what's referred to as undistributable amounts in the contract. And so staff is recommending the award of the contract to Reith Riley tonight in the amount of $4,189,600. And then if you award that contract, we would immediately I'll come right back in just a few seconds and ask you to approve a change order that actually reduces it to $3,625,435.15, which when you look at your council action form brings that in just about $75,000 under the original budget and the funding for the project. So item 14 is before you now, and if you have any questions, either Tammy or I will attempt to answer them.
Any questions?
Can you highlight what the sort of warning signals and other type of safety devices would be specifically installed as part of the railroad crossing?
Yes, I'm sure Tammy will be able to do that.
As far as the railroad crossing goes, there will be gates and lights. So it'll be similar to it'll be similar to the 116th Street crossing, where they've got the gates coming down.
Okay, and that's all part of the contract.
Yes.
I think another important point to this particular road project is the amount of work that's going on underneath the asphalt of this road. This is an area whose stormwater is circa probably about 100 years ago, and the sewer is right there with it. So we're completely reconstructing the infrastructure that you would normally take for granted underneath the road, and that's a big portion of the bid you see here before you that will provide water, sewer, and stormwater for the next 50 to 60 years in the downtown. So there's a significant progress being done underneath the asphalt when we do this project.
Will that help, excuse me, will that help south of 116th Street? Any issues over there in terms of their stormwaters?
I don't believe it would do anything there, but if you've been up Maple Street, that this last rain we had, it was pretty bad. So
I know it's bad.
Yeah,
because the house we went out and looked in today had 6 inches of water in the basement.
But it will improve the north side, but not the south side.
Not at this time, no. We have, in this project, we have box culverts and storm chambers that will help store some of the water to hold it so it does not flood farther downstream until we can make some improvements down south of 116th Street.
And as I recall earlier discussion, there was some possibility of even recycling some of the stormwater, no? Yeah.
We talked about using the stormwater for irrigation, but I don't know if that's included in this or not.
No, that's not included in this.
And you also may be remembering, there's a permeable paver part of this.
Yeah.
That may be what you're remembering, Mike. That was more that green infrastructure idea. So that the Fishers Corner Boulevard, the red you see there are the angled parking spots, and those are permeable pavers. And so they're, as you've probably all seen, there are gaps in between the pavers where the water will filter through those and then get into the stormwater system that way.
And I think for Mike's question too, and I'm kind of dating myself, but I was around in 1996 on some of those designs, and there was a huge trunk line, I think, for storm that was put in, and it actually crosses 116th Street, because there was actually a pond where the Yeager building is now. So I think, Mike, what that does is the trunk line's there, but nothing to really feed to it, so that's what you probably saw, but that's what this is doing. But the question I had was, the bid, even the low bid, came in higher than the engineer's estimate. So two questions. One, it came in about $200,000 more. But then the main thing is you know, you kind of look at the bottom line number, and then you look at some of the parts, and they're a little bit higher on some, a little bit lower on some. But the one thing that's really kind of a secondary item that you don't see a lot is railroad crossings. It's fairly unique. So I guess with that, it looks like that was about $200,000 shy. So I think at the end of the day that it was a little bit above, probably because of the railroad crossing. Is that? As I kind of think through it in my mind, it seems like that's the one that is probably unique. And then with that, the second question is, you only have two bids. Is part of that because it had the railroad crossing? If you didn't have that in, would it be pretty standard stuff? Or maybe you get 3 or 4? Did that kind of scare some people away, or maybe it needs a unique person?
There were, I believe, probably 2 companies that were subs for the railroad stuff that actually put in bids. But mainly, I think the reason why we only got 2 bids, we did get about 10 companies pick up plans. Okay. There was a lot of storm work in this rather than road construction, so it was just a little unique where it was all storm work.
Yeah, I can attest to having conversation with a couple different paving companies that I would have thought would have bid on this, and they just said the actual building of the road, the pavement project, is such a small percentage of the real work, which is everything underneath the road. So I think it was just one of those kind of oddball projects that you have so much going on in it that it's tough to find a contractor that's really going to focus on it.
Okay. Any other questions? Not, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
Move to request the award construction contract for the downtown infrastructure improvement project.
Do I have a second?
Second, and that assumes your motion assumes the change to pull out.
No, it's going to be separate.
No.
That's going to be a separate
Do
item.
that one second.
Sorry.
Yep.
Right when I said it.
So we have a motion, we have a second by David. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Let's go ahead and deal with item A, which I think Tom is,
Yeah, so the item A is the change order, which
Okay.
reduces it to as it's showing in council action form, $3,625,435.15. And Tammy has the summary that she actually typed up, so I'm just going to have her go through the 6 major items that are changing in that reduction.
Okay, as the major portions of the deduction, like Tom said, the first one is the railroad crossing work that is going to be done at Lantern Road. We're pushing that off to kind of tie that in with the intersection improvement there at Lantern Commercial and Technology Drive, which will come either later this year or next year. And that saved approximately $167,000 just in that railroad work. Another savings that we were able to do, instead of using a paved drain system, which basically is the pavers that are tied together in a roll, the prices for that were rather high. So instead of doing the paved drain system, we did the individual permeable pavers, which saved approximately $66,000, even adding in the additional cost of the pavers. We chose to cut the water line in underneath the railroad, since we will have the railroad work being done at Fishers Corner Boulevard. While that's closed, we'll go ahead and cut the water line in to tie into here, Municipal Drive. So we were able to save about $100,000, so we wouldn't have to do a jack and bore underneath the railroad. We also chose to, instead of having all the driveway approaches in concrete, we chose to do those as asphalt. That saved about $11,700. Rather than placing sod everywhere, we've chose to do seed, which saved about $16,000. And we removed, I believe, 8 maintenance manholes into the storm sewer chambers, and that saved about $132,000. Those manholes were there basically in order to allow someone to go into the chambers to clean them. Without the manholes being there, they'd just be cleaned with jets, where we would just put the, like a vac truck or and clean that way. So that saved about $132,000.
Any question for staff on item A?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. You mentioned going underneath the railroad. David and I sit on the Port Authority. Have we run all of this past the Port Authority and there's no questions or concerns, Rhonda?
Yeah, we have been in contact with HHPA on the railroad crossing work and the crossing for the water line.
So
And everything's fine?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
And I think the next area of coordination, besides the plans, which has occurred through Tammy Engineering, will be with the timing of when it's actually, the work's done, to make sure that's more of a coordination with ITM, but we're having those conversations as well.
Okay, great. Thanks.
The only thing you said, Tammy, was switching from sod to seed and $16,000, but are we worried that there's a lot of foot traffic that might be going back and forth to some of those businesses? Does that make sense to keep that, or if you guys think seed's good enough, then that's fine too?
We have had some, in the past couple of years, we've had some success with the seed rather than sod. It just kind of fills in a little more than the sod does. We can take a look at that again as we move forward.
Okay. But when
as
they
far
do,
as the foot
that's
traffic
that
goes.
professional, it's a hydro seeding where it kind of creates a mat and it's pretty
Yeah, we
stable.
used the hydro seeding at 96 in Allisonville, and that
Okay.
came in really well.
Okay.
I guess, and David, without, good some irrigation systems, I think the seed gives a deeper root and a better, long-standing, result.
Drought.
If the builder puts an actual topsoil, then.
Something they can grow in, rather than clay.
I think I've seen that hydro seed grow grass at a telephone pole, so I'm pretty sure they can make grass grow on the ground. Okay, so. Any other questions? I'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the contract change order.
Do I have a second? Second from Stewart. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 15, appointments to boards and commissions.
Well, I think I'll just jump in here quickly so we can close it out and people can go watch a basketball game. This is the Nickel Plate Review Committee, Nickel Plate District Review Committee. We've had several conversations about this in work session. Tonight I'd ask that you would approve the recommended appointments to this committee, along with adding David George as a council appointment. And please take note and amend that John Wexler, until we get confirmation from him that he would indeed serve on this committee, that you would not appoint him tonight. But if you could add David to that appointment list and take John out and approve, we would appreciate it.
Any questions for Scott? I'll take a motion.
And the full committee.
Oh, the full committee, yeah. Let me rephrase. I would then recommend that we appoint the members as indicated in the council action form, with specifically naming David George as a town council representative and excluding John Wexler as a nominee until it's confirmed.
I have a
Can we, can we do that as a, bring it back if,
I think that's a great idea. If you would just say, confirm pending his,
yeah.
I think then we don't have to do another round of this.
That's my motion.
Yeah.
So we're going to move to approve the names that are currently listed on there. John's subject to his approval, agreeing to be on there.
Acceptance.
And adding David on there as a town council person. So I have a motion to have a second.
Second.
All those in favor? please say
Aye.
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 We get everybody opposed?
What's okay?
Unanimous.
Can't oppose.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, moving on. Is there any other unfinished or new business?
Yeah, I hate to impede progress, but I was remiss in my responsibilities when you asked me to read the announcements. There are some announcements on the back side of this announcement page, so I do want to make sure I at least cover those, that there's a Spring 2014 Recycling Day. I ask the town of Fishers folks with our Town of Fisher Stormwater Utility, and on the 12th of April, between 8 and 2 at Mudsock Field, they'll have a recycling day. Last fall, there was about 800 residents who disposed of more than 30,000 pounds of electronic waste and 2,300 gallons of hazardous liquids. So we hope it beats those numbers this year. Second is a announcement that at 106th Street in Cross Point, a roundabout at 6 a.m. on Tuesday, April 15th, 106th Street and Cross Point Boulevard intersection will be closed for construction for the new two-lane roundabout. The closure will last 60 days. Motorists are asked to follow the posted detour routes during construction, and for updates, you can do go to the website and do Drive Fishers on Twitter. And I assume that's disseminated.
We've
We're
actually
getting an
had
affirmative from our PAO folks.
that, plus we've also had signage out.
Yeah, we had issues
sometime.
out there, as I recall,
Yeah.
last year.
Thanks for catching that, Mike. Go ahead, David?
Sorry, real quick, just two things. One is, and I just read, and I didn't read the full thing, but the BMV was stated in the, I forget whether it was the Star or what article, and I don't
Yeah.
want to
Current, I
mischaracterize
believe.
it, the Current. And it was more that we were moving them out, and that's not entirely true. I just want to make sure that it's known that there were some negotiations. Their business has actually gone down, so I think to a certain extent, they had some incentives where they were looking for other places where they could maybe find a lower rate. Or maybe look for some business changes, but it's not that Fishers was moving them out. When they moved out, we have places that we can fill that void, so it's not exactly one or the other. I just want to make sure that's known. And then-
We are still in conversation with BMB officials, asking them about some other alternatives to continue to keep a location here in Fishers, and we will continue those conversations to see if there's an opportunity. But they have, from what I understand, a BMV about 7 minutes away from the good portion of Fishers and can save about $1 million. So we have a tough argument to make, but we'll continue to try to make it.
Yeah, 116th and Aliceville's got a lot of spots we could put them. The other thing, just real quick, in the future, could you bring in somebody for, I've had a lot of calls recently. We always have them for 106th and Cumberland. We have some drainage projects that are ongoing.
Yep.
And those drainage projects are going to help solve some of the problem more at the intersection, but there's going to be some additional projects that will have to happen, I think, in the future, or some of the subdivisions north of that. I think it'd be helpful just for people to be able to hear that this is the project we're doing, and this is what that's going to solve, and these are some additional things that would have to happen over time to help that. I think it would help people just understand what's going on, and the fact that we are expending funds to help incrementally move that in the right direction.
Absolutely. There's a project about to kick off at 106th and Cumberland to mitigate some of the
But
flooding.
it's not the fix, it's a huge fix, but it's.
I will bring somebody into a work session to have that conversation. We can have them present here as well.
Any other items? If not, is there any claims that need to be pulled? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and I'll take a motion to adjourn with the approval of the trustee invoice payments in the accounts payable register.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Don't forget to sign the
We are
claims.
adjourned.